Good morning. I'm Don Lacasse, Professor of Theater, and it's a pleasure to welcome you here to the program this morning. Steppenwolf Theatre and its ensemble members have changed the face of the American theater. I have no doubt that when the history of the last quarter of the 20th century and into the 21st century, that Steppenwolf Theatre will be looked upon as the finest ensemble theater of that time period. Probably the most significant theater ensemble since the group theater. No doubt that one of the things that also Steppenwolf has done now, which the group theater did, is many of their members are also out teaching to carry on their transition, their tradition. So it's a great pleasure to welcome today two of our alums, two of the three co-founders of Steppenwolf Theatre. I'd like to introduce to you Jeff Perry and Terry Kinney. Our format this morning will be, I've asked them to talk a little bit about Steppenwolf Theatre, its founding, and the experiences they've had with it, and then also to talk about what it was like being an ISU theater student in the 1970s. And then we'll have a question and answer section, okay? So,
great.
Jeff and Terry.
Jeff is a far more, you will find, Jeff is a far more articulate speaker than I am. I will start. We were here in the early to mid 70s, and I met Jeffrey in 1973 and 4 when he came in as a freshman. He invited me at the end of that school year. We just socially hit it off and liked doing theater together. And he asked me if I would mind coming and filling a third role, not the lead at all, but the third role in a play called Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. He said his friend was in it, and he was in it. They were playing the leads. And I could live in his basement in Highland Park, Illinois, and
I thought there were three leads. I never thought of it as, leads and supporting. But go ahead. No. Okay.
So I went and I lived in his basement, and that's when I met, the first day I was there, Gary Sinise, who drove down in his Chevy, it was a Camaro,
yeah,
and picked us up. We came back to school after that summer where it was a revelatory summer where we just loved digging into the work. We never stopped rehearsing even while we were running it, and it was a sad thing to close. So we said, let's go back and draft as many people as we can find that are like-minded to come back here at the end of our education, our formal education. So that being 2 years for me and 3 for Jeff. You want to continue now?
Sure. And so we had just done 4 performances together of Stoppard's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead at the Deerfields Unitarian Church, suburb of Chicago, right? And made this, all theater students know this, the end of a play is a horrible depression. And you can't wait to figure out what the next thing is. And so we made this promise to each other. And I think I then, did I proceed to take the year off, Terry? I think so. Yes.
Jeff quit school. That's why I thought I should let him continue.
Yeah. So I quit school and unsuccessfully chased a high school girlfriend up in Minneapolis, who had.
And I believe you drove an ice cream truck.
Yeah. She said, "It's very sweet of you to come up here, but this isn't the movie The Graduate. We're not going off together.
She broke up with him, and I do believe it was partially because of the ice cream truck.
Yeah. And so I had a wonderful sophomore messing around in the Minneapolis area, and then came back to school, and we started having meetings about forming the theater. Slightly prior to this, you know, when I introduced Gary and Terry to each other, I said, "Gary, you got to meet my new co-best friend, and Terry, you got to meet our other best friend," Gary and I went to a high school. So I'll jump backward and then we'll go forward again. We went to Highland Park High School, suburban Chicago high school. And there was this passionate, crazy, wonderful teacher there. And in our high school, there might have been, maybe one musical per year. And 12 years later, at the end of this woman's tenure, there was a curriculum like half the size of ISU's. A couple of acting classes and a tech theater class and a theater history class and a directing class. And 6 student productions per year and 2 or 3 faculty productions per year. She was a whirlwind, an amazing woman, and would take us to the Guthrie and so many of the same values that I would end up feeling here at ISU from another brilliant and crazy faculty. And so Terry and I do this, and we have met, and we had an amazing, first year at school, and then I F off for a year, and then I came back, and we're doing shows and this and that, and we started having meetings. And Gary would come down, where he was a 4.5-year high school guy. He had paid such attention to play rehearsal and such little attention to math and science and gym that they said, if you want your high school diploma, you're back for at least another half year. And he did that. And out of some sort of rage and boredom, he started a community theater. And it was named Steppenwolf because one of our high school classmates, a guy named Rick Argosh, was reading Herman Hesse's book. And they did 4 shows, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead being the last of them. Gary comes down, and we're having meetings. I think in year 1, my freshman year, your sophomore, I think Gary used to come down a bit, and we were going to try to do an off-campus production of Harold Pinter's The Homecoming. And Ralph Lane, or Don perhaps, or Cal Prittner, or somebody reminded us, most of you are on talent grants, you're on tuition waivers. You're supposed to be working in the department, not off at, the back room of Avanti's, or wherever you plan on doing, this production. And we said, I can't believe it. Then we let go of that idea. And we held a bunch of meetings. There must have been, 15 people in and out of these number of meetings. I wish we'd recorded them. Something interesting must have been said. I'm sure, maybe not. All I can remember, you guys, is that I'm sure that they were about, let's continue what we love doing best. That when we leave here, let's continue this amount of fun. Let's continue this amount of self-determination. It was very crucial, it seems to me, in kind of, I knew it to a certain extent then, and we all felt it in hindsight, certainly. It was tremendously crucial that for Gary and I to taste it in high school, and then for all of us who would form Steppenwolf from ISU to taste this crucial expectation and permission to figure out what it meant to be an artist. The faculty said, all of you guys, maybe a third of your work is going to be student-driven work, peer-directed. Find a play, cast it, design it, compose music. One of our most talented in our lifetime classmates who helped run our theater for the first 4 years, H.E. Bacchus, kind of epitomized the permission and inspiration of that gift that the department gave in its curriculum, which was basically saying, go learn how to fish. H.E. Bacchus, one example of the kind of work that was being done was he adapted Don DeLillo's novel Great Jones Street, designed the sets, the costumes, and wrote a score for it. And I think he would have acted in it, but he felt probably like he was taking a part away from somebody else, because he was a brilliant actor. And so many people have asked, Terry and Gary and I and all the company members, how did it stick? What was the glue? How did it? I said, well, from early on, we didn't think twice about figuring out what we loved and whose work we loved and who we thought we could work off of best. And that all happened here at ISU, and it all happened in the Allen Theater. So continuing to do that, people have said, that was amazing. My God, how did you do that? Wasn't it scary? And we had a bit of that last night with some of the faculty at the president's house, and we said, well, not really. Once you're a theater major, you know that you're not going to be a good banker, and you're not going to be good at insurance, and you're not going to be good at this and that. And so, the thought of extending your adolescence, with your friends that you love, it wasn't scary. It was stupid, but it wasn't scary. No. Yeah.
But it did start in Allen Theater, which is no longer here in the same form. Westop is sort of the new Allen Theater. What we had at that time was the permission, the encouragement to rehearse whenever we could book a slot for a weekend of marathon plays every weekend. They would fill the house from morning until late at night with these shows that you put together throughout the week, and your rehearsals would sometimes be at 4 in the morning, 2 in the morning. The theater was a 24-hour operation. It was that freedom that gave us the idea that we could probably do something very grassroots ourselves at the end of it, because they did. I mean, it was a well-put metaphor, go learn to fish. And at the same time, I was taking classes like weather, earth science, and failing them because of this.
So we have these meetings, and we're approaching the summer of 1976. And we're within 1, 2, I guess maybe there might have been an example. We were all within a grade of each other, I think. And quite a trick to get an honorary doctorate when you never got your BA. I got to thank ISU for that. Damn, that's nice.
Or in Gary's case.
Yeah.
I mean, he was only here, for the coffee.
Yeah, right. And and so the community theater version of a few high school students and Gary and Tara and I and our high school teacher of 4 productions that had been dormant for a couple of years. Yeah, summer of '74 to the summer of '76. And so we have these meetings, and it ends up being Tara and I and Laurie Metcalf and John Malkovich and Al Wilder and Nancy Evans and H.E. Bacchus. And
You're on your own.
Yeah, okay. Anybody else? Laurie, me and you. Yeah. Alan Wilder.
There were 9 of us.
And Gary had found in our hometown, it's about, Highland Park is about probably maybe 55, 60% Jewish. And there was one Catholic school in town, the Immaculate Conception Church School. And it had a youth center in a basement where there was a mural of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. There was one fluorescent black light. It was
says a lot about the Catholics.
Yeah. It was a big. It was all rectangle. This room. It had about a 10-foot ceiling at most. No fly loft, and it was kind of all width and not too much depth. But we pulled on the sleeve of one of our high school buddies and their parents and board member and a man who owned an insurance company, and he signed a $12,000 loan so that we could build risers and have a little sprinkler system. And the Archdiocese had rented it to us for $1 a year. And Terry and Gary and I were its first artistic directorship. And we just kind of sat at the kitchen table and cast out 4 one-acts so that we'd all be working and just get us all busy, get us all doing something. And we're gonna rotate these one-acts. They were Leonard Melfi's Bird Bath, and The Indian Wants the Bronx, and Ian Esco's Lesson, and Harold Pinter's The Lover. And everybody was working. Terry was directing The Lover with Lori and I was directing The Lesson with Moira Harris. I forgot Moira. Moira Harris, and Al Wilder, and Nancy Evans. And who directed Indian Wants the Bronx? And John directed Indian Wants the Bronx with H.E. and Terry and Gary. And Terry directed The Lover with Lori and I. And so we had 4 little plays, one that I barely understood about a more mature married couple playing, sort of sexual fantasy games. And that was Pinter's The Lover. Another where a woman has killed her mother with a hammer. That was Bird Bath. Another where 2 boys terrorized this poor East Indian. That was Indian Wants a Bronx. And The Lesson, where a dictatorial despot of a teacher ends up murdering his student. We thought this was light summer fare. And perfectly appropriate to a community that was used to musicals. And
So we played to 2 people a night. That's just true. And we barely made it through that first summer. We all worked we worked in malls, and we worked at Ravinia, festival, and we worked around the town. It was not a town that catered to 20-somethings, so it was tough to be single, and it was tough. It was a tough ride for the first few years, and the town actually supported us more after a couple of years when we went to Chicago with these same plays. The St. Nicholas Theater sponsored us to bring 2 of the plays, the 2 good ones, to Chicago. We got good press for that, and then people started coming a little more in Highland Park, and we moved to the city of Chicago. I'm trying to fast track.
No, it's
now.
good.
And that, I would say, that's the story of our beginning.
Do you remember bringing Indian Wants the Bronx here?
Yeah.
Do you remember where it was done? I can't remember what space it was in. If it was over here?
No, it was in a smaller space. I believe we did it in
Well, I knew whether it was just on the stage with the audience on the stage, or I just don't remember what space
yeah,
it was
but
in.
we did bring
Yeah.
it here.
Was it in Capon?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, because that was our first real introduction to seeing your work
from Chicago.
It was really just an extension. Our beginnings were just an extension of the kind of work we did here again, with our professors and with their supervision by ourselves. So they taught here a particular brand. It was a perfect storm of all of these different philosophies of theater. And I remember all of them very clearly. Jean Scharfenberg in her animals class, where she would, I'm sure you've heard the lore, where you would have to be an animal in her classroom for an entire semester and never break character, never ever break character. I played a sloth. And I didn't ever break character. I got a D. And Dr. Lane and his 5 stages of becoming a character, which he had based upon his work, based, on our town as well as other places, where you are yourself completely. You're yourself preparing to be the character. You're the character with a bit of yourself over here. You're fully the character, and then there's a 5th level that I think you're on
Your head
Star
explodes.
Trek.
Yeah.
And things I've used that I will always use. I've brought it up too many times, but Don was my directing teacher, and he used to use a phrase with actors where he would say, "Don't just do something, stand there." And I found it so useful that I still use it. As an actor, you have a need to fill the space all the time. So when you're standing and listening, that's a real art, to stand and listen, because you're far more arresting to other people when you're still and you're listening. It's out of listening, it's out of reaction that action actually happens. And so I use that phrase still, and John Kirk talking about the space between actors, and that's where your character is actually formed. That's a revolutionary kind of an idea when you think about it. Most people talk about you doing your research, about you knowing who the person is, finding a physical life for it, finding a psychological life, and bringing it into the room. Sort of done. John didn't say that. John said, no, it's in the space between you and another actor. Their reaction to you, right in the middle of you, that you're going to find your character. And we started our theater company by throwing ourselves at each other. And it was this kind of philosophy that I think informed it. We never did readings of first plays. We flung ourselves around the room. We flung ourselves over the table at each other in conflicts. One of the things we got noticed for in Indian Once the Bronx was that there was a lot of violence in the play, and we didn't do stage violence. We hit each other. We really pummeled each other all night long. I would never do that again, and I don't recommend it. But it came from this period of time, the 70s, where they would celebrated the anti-hero so much in literature, and also from a period of time where communal living with each other, staying with your community and choosing your community as a show of group strength, that I think that allowed us to exist. Could we exist if we came out of school now? It's a really good question. Most people get plucked, most talented people get plucked by someone and taken away with a lot of, it's hard to ignore financial gain. It's hard to ignore fame. But we ignored it. We incubated together. That started here.
Okay.
Should we
open it up?
Answer, Lynn? Yeah.
Sure. Let's open it up. Questions? Over here.
Who or what inspired you to become actors?
That has a lot of different answers for a lot of the different artists, but there was a really large commonality. 10 years in, Terry and Gary and I are in a hotel room, or 15 years in, and going, okay, remind me, what were the most inspiring movies from when we first met? And we make a list of 10 movies, and about 8 out of 10 we have in common. For instance, in the work of Robert Altman, in the work of Scorsese, in the work of Bergman, in the work of Woody Allen, in the work of Elia Kazan, in Monty Python, for God's sakes, in I Love Lucy, in the first 2 or 3 generations of Saturday Night Live. There's all sorts of examples, if your wiring is prone to them, of amazement and kind of wonder and inspiration of, look at how these people work together. There's something in their communication, in their collaboration, that is larger than anything that they could do alone. There's kind of a third entity. They make each other complete. We see it so literally in sports, I suppose. That kind of collaboration and that kind of connection. But these were a lot of our inspirations of, when you're with good people and you're finding the story together, that creates the most sublime storytelling. And it served another absolutely pragmatic, vital thing for us. We were all individual actors wanting to get better. And it was kind of a no-brainer to us that, you get better through focusing on the other, through giving, through learning from the other. That's how you get better.
Okay. Question? Yes.
We have thought about that. We certainly, we have a, Jeff, Gary, and I don't run the theater in the way that we used to. It's being run really well by an artistic director, much better, an artistic director named Martha Levy. But we wanted to continue what we do. We know that we're committed to the same vision, and we always will be. This has been an amazement to us that we haven't disagreed more about what we watch, about what we do, about each other, about our friendships. And that's an amazing thing after 35 years to have that. But we have a division called Steppenwolf Films, and we've done a couple of films so far, but one of the stories we've thought about writing is our own story. I don't know if we would do it better or if somebody else would do it better, but we do talk about it sometimes. We'd cast all ISU people, absolutely.
Yeah,
you need that
right.
Midwestern sensibility,
right.
God damn it.
That's right.
Absolutely.
There's another strain of, there's something about Illinois and whether it's more true in the middle and in the south of Illinois than in the burbs, probably. But there's something. It's not a coincidence that the famous comedy troupe called itself Second City, in Chicago, and there we're often asked, why the longevity? Because it takes a lot of different facets, it seems to me, in hindsight, for you to put up with communal work. It's kind of the hardest form of government. So many people have to agree every damn time, as opposed to everybody, you do this, and we would have, screaming fights for hours. And they had the same intensity, whether it was who was going to clean the bathroom or what's the next play, and so it's a hard way to work. But there's a stubbornness. I was thinking the complete relative lack of esteem in the eyes of the world, or even notice that we're all here in normal. You know what I mean? That probably hasn't changed too much. And yet there was such passion and excellence here.
And people are just damn polite in this part of the country.
Yeah.
I've noticed that since coming here over the weekend. All of the students, hello, how are you? The talent comes with the humility, and Jeff's right about that. We saw a good part of the first act last night. We were going off to other functions that we had to go to, but we saw a very good portion of the first act of How to Succeed in Business last night. And it was, the talent was astounding. It was astounding to watch. You should all be very proud of yourselves.
Yeah, but that stubbornness, and that just kind of, look, there's not going to be any fame and fortune right here. And even when I go home to my parents, somebody else is going to Harvard, and I'm going to ISU. There's that pecking order horse shit. And it exists, of course, in the theater world as soon as we got out, and we're in Chicago, and New York and LA you know that they're just positive. They're much more important than Chicago could ever be. And it breeds okay, fine. Maybe there won't be fame and fortune here, although we'll see about that. But we're going to take the work very seriously. Just love the work, and kind of felt that here, and felt that in Chicago. And it's how we were able to.
It's hard to find performing arts programs that don't foster a whole lot of hams. And I see it in New York. I live in New York, and I see it a lot. And I'm not putting those programs down, but I see a great deal of confidence in the youth culture that I haven't seen before. Here, immediately, I saw the kindness that I forgot about. Kindness. And a sense of self that is based upon, there are other people here. There are other people in the room. There are other people in the world. There are other actors in the world. So it does create a certain kind of Midwestern listening. And I think it's unique. I think you should take it out into the world and feel really good about it. Anyway.
Okay. Yes, back here.
We did. There's a guy named Sheldon Patinkin who was very, very, in the very beginnings of Second City, and continues to teach and be close to us in Chicago. We all, when we first were doing big palette shows like Balm and Gilead, with 30 people all talking at the same time, and we knew that we needed more skill sets. Sheldon was an improvisation, guru. So we did classes. And I think they were on Saturdays. 3 hours of just getting up and doing improvs together as a company. We did not perform them for other people, though, no. We did them for each other, and it was a blast.
Yeah, it was just kind of general study, and then in it, specifically, we kind of put it to use. He directed us in Clifford Odessa's Waiting for Lefty. And we built about 20, 30 minutes of improvised behavior before the script started. Yeah.
Okay. Other question?
When you were first starting out with Highland Park, how hard was it to get the Chicago critics up to speed?
Repeat the question, says Pete.
Oh, I'm sorry. When you were in Chicago, how long did it take you to get the notice of the Chicago critics? Was that the question?
In Highland Park?
At Highland Park, yeah.
Pretty early on, Richard Christensen gave us a really good review. It felt like it was in maybe the first season. Maybe it was the second. It was in the first season. Yeah. And in that particular era, he and Glennis Ice were the two big critics. The Reader had just started, right?
Yes, they sent someone named Michael Vermeulen to review our first set of plays. And he showed up in a white dinner jacket with a white bow tie, and I thought, oh, God, no, we're in trouble. And he loved two of they wrote at length, the Reader, the Chicago Reader, and they still write much longer articles than the, popular papers. And he wrote essays, basically, on two of our shows, and got us noticed because of it.
Okay, another question? Yes, down here.
What advice can you give to those of us who want to pursue having our own theater company, per se?
Okay. What advice would you give on pursuing your own theater company?
Yeah, that was a very bad question. But
That's okay.
That's a good
That's
question.
good. That's good. I'm
Really
trying to
good.
repeat
That's-
it for
what do
the
you mean?
recording here.
My advice is always do it with people that you are like-minded with. Obviously, do it with people that you feel close to, that you want to spend a lot of time with, because you will get very tired of each other. Do it with people that you can agree to fight fairly, as fairly as possible with each other. Have one vision, appoint an artistic director, don't have a proletariat, because sibling societies don't work. They don't. We found that out very quickly, that we needed an artistic director as much as we needed a professor, to bounce things off of. Have that. Have someone that's committed to that. Try to raise funds to pay that person, to keep somebody in the office while you all do day jobs to support your theater habit. Secondly, try to give yourselves a period of time that you cannot quit. 3 years that you cannot quit. You might get plucked off to Hollywood to be on some sort of cop show or whatever, but you can't quit the theater company because of that. You can't eschew one thing for another. Try to do it in a place that supports theater companies' work. Chicago is a very good place for that. I understand St. Louis is as well. But don't go to New York. Don't go right to New York with your theater company, or you'll never see it again. That's my advice.
Okay, another question? Over here.
In an ensemble-based theater company for several, can you talk to me about the role of directors?
Okay, about the role of directors in an ensemble theater.
We always valued above else we were actors first. We tried, and some of us had great love for and ability at directing as early as our school years, but we're kind of always in service of what is the group acting event. And so we always needed, with each other, it was just a given of we had actors who understood how each other worked. And we understood just actor thinking processes and actor vocabulary. And when we worked with outside directors, it had to be what we called, actor savvy and actor loving directors, as opposed to there are directors with all sorts of different kinds of qualities, and they can be sculptural and musical and painterly and amazing storytellers in their way. Some of them can somehow allow good acting and have a great sense of this isn't my forte, but I'm going to build in an environment in which you guys can do what you do best. More often, if it's not their forte, they're really screwing you up as actors. And you're speaking, you feel like you're speaking in two different languages. And that would happen once in a while by mistake, because we didn't know each other well enough. And it wouldn't happen again, because it was just the wrong mix, of talent.
I have a different answer because I'm a director. There's I believe we still, and Jeff spoke the truth, we have to really go in the room thinking that the director has a vision that we can all get behind. But we don't come to it as a group. I don't believe that. I think we come to it through the director's vision, and the actors are just so attuned to they have a shortcut. That's what you get when you get to work at a company like ours, who's been around for a while, is that there are a lot of shortcuts. I can say 2 words to Jeff, whereas if I meet someone for the first time, and I direct mostly in New York, so I often have to convince them that this vision is going to work and that they're going to be good because of it and give over your soul to a certain extent. But I think it's important that everybody give over their soul. You've seen the productions where they don't, and they don't work. So I think there's one vision, and that's a directorial vision.
Yeah, and I do, yeah. If I said something that didn't agree with that, I didn't mean... No, I didn't mean it. Because I mean, it's interesting. It's a simultaneous truth. We kind of made, Goddess and God out of actor-driven ensemble work. And yet, we're not an improvisatory troupe. We're not a writing for each other as actors troupe. Sorry.
Jeff's phone's on.
And so, we're always in service of a story and of the leader of that story, the director. Yeah.
Okay. The other question. Yes, right here. Oh, wait a minute. Where? That guy right there's been going for... Okay.
How important do you think the mission is to the theater company, and how has it changed for you guys from the beginning to the end?
Okay. How important is a mission to the theater company, and how has it changed through the years?
We didn't know that we really had one. We tried to put down a mission plan, and I'll tell you who was really in charge of the articulation of it on paper. Jeff. We knew that Jeff liked to do that. We called him Mr. List. He used to like to write things, and they were all true about what we were attempting, first of all. They were really good to read, and they helped with our grant writing, which we were so green at, and that's another thing about your theater company. You got to have a grant writer. You got to have somebody that can do that and get to the grant writing community, because there is a certain language that will get you a yes, and a certain language that will definitely get you a no, no matter what your work is. It's very bureaucratic based. Now back to your question. We didn't adhere to anything except the language that happened on stage. Jeff talked about our meetings in which there were a lot of fights. Every time we met, we said, let's hold this meeting to an hour. This is about our next play. And then 5 hours later, somebody would be crying, the police had been called. This is absolutely true, that somebody ran out the door crying and was tackled, and a policeman was holding her down, and we said, please let her go, we'll take care of her. We're having a theater meeting. You have to understand. The mission statement was actually the group ethic that was being led quietly by a handful of us. There was a handful of people in the company that knew exactly and agreed exactly about the kind of work we wanted to do. We knew we wanted to tear down the fourth wall. Now that sounds like a cliche nowadays. At that time it did not. We wanted to do the kind of realism that made people feel that they might be in the wrong place. These guys might really be hurting each other up here. There might be something seriously, dramatically going on underneath what the dramaturgy of the play dictates. We wanted it to be hyper real, and we got that by watching certain films and by our work that we witnessed and and did here.
Some of the best Cassavetes epitomized that.
Yeah, you watch the film Husbands, watch the film Woman Under the Influence, watch the film Scarecrow with Al Pacino and Gene Hackman. Nobody even knows about these films anymore, but they were so just real and the way life really works. They're about real people, people on the periphery of life, not people in the center, people you cross the sidewalk to avoid. Those were the people we loved. Those were the people we wanted to represent on stage. We wanted to get into aberrant psychology. You know, we didn't want to do a drawing room comedy much. You didn't see us doing a lot of Shakespeare, and we certainly did. We tried a musical, and we were god awful. I mean, we were beyond awful. What we were good at was portraying these people that we had that broke our hearts, and I think that continues. I mean, I think that's the kind of work we choose. I think there's something incredibly uplifting in doing a play about desperate characters that don't know what to do next. They don't know how to live. They don't know who they are in many cases. You know, Arthur Miller wrote these characters. They're struggling. And we go to the theater. The importance of art, for me, is that we go to the theater and we turn off the lights and we see our lives reflected back in metaphor, in storytelling, to us, and it helps to make sense of the things that we suffer through every day. Whereas now, here we are in an age of information. We can get anything we want by Googling it right away. We can contact anyone that we can't reach right away on Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. We have all the information we need, but what we don't have is the metaphor, the storytelling, the mythology that makes us make sense of our daily suffering. That was our mission from the beginning, because we were all shy people. We were all artists who didn't quite know if we were artists yet. With each other, it felt powerful, because we could release whatever we were feeling, whatever we were going through, it came to the stage. And that's the one place where we agreed, in John Kirk's space between us. If that makes sense?
Okay, very nice. Okay, question here.
How has the increased national notice of Steppenwolf with August Osage County the last few years, Superior Donuts? I just read Detroit. How has that affected you guys?
Okay. How has the increased national visibility of plays like August Osage County, Superior Donuts, et cetera, impacted on the company?
It's a continuance of an evolution of kind of reach and dealing with a certain amount of the public's perception. You know, in very simple, positive ways, you can get artists on the phone and interested in you easier all the time when reputation increases, or when, you know, hopefully when actually good work, you know, reverberates past the Chicago space. We never, Martha Lavey took us into a real steady and fierce commitment to new writing and to repeatable relationships with playwrights. And that's been a 10, 12-year effort now. And it's starting to really bear fruit. So that's kind of crazy exciting, because it was a rather fluke of history that we grew up alongside a theater started by David Mamet and W.H. Macy and some others, St. Nicholas Theater. They were dedicated entirely to new writing. And there was a way in which whatever our, you know, beginning ambitions about this is what we should make part of our personality, It wasn't going to be in the cards in our early going. They had deserved and early success in just, in our little back, in the playground that is Chicago. And it was like, okay, we're not going to find our image there. Let's keep doing what we're doing. And in a way, it was, we're going to go toward, we had this rivulet that was all United Kingdom writing, and another river that was the True Wests and the Balm and Gileads, things that had been done but somehow neglected or screwed up in previous production. And then American classics of Mice and Men and Glass Menagerie and Death of a Salesman. And that was kind of our bread and butter. We did a few new plays, but really just a few in 15 years. And then this last 10 years, 12 years has been this big commitment to it. I think it's a beautiful commitment. I mean, I was able to say to Tracy Letts 3 years ago at the beginning of August Osage, I said, we've had so many blessings, man. I mean, more than we deserved. And so many great work experiences. And we've had Frank Galati adapt, the Grapes of Wrath with us and for us, and Austin Pendleton had written original shows, and there had been a little bit of it here, but I said, with this is such a magnificent achievement. It's such a true and homegrown expression of what we do best and the kind of people we come from and care about, that this is as close as we've gotten to Clifford Odets and the Group Theater and Chekhov and the Moscow Art Theater, of having a writer from us writing our story, and as a tremendously wonderful feeling, yeah.
Okay. Question? Over here? When choosing a season, did you balance comedies and dramas, or did you just choose a season?
It depends on you would ask any number of our artistic directors. We did do years where we would try to balance an American play with a new British play, something more lighthearted and something, devastating, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think Martha works that way entirely. What she does is she brings a theme to each season. Last year was, I believe, a celebration of just imagination. And this year, I think this next season is something about family. She reads so many plays that when I think she is boiling it down to 5, she finds a theme in her head to help pick those plays. That will help her eliminate that 6th and 7th play that are, right up there. So it's a thematic principle that she works from.
Another question? Way over there.
What do you think it takes in a very deeply saturated marketplace, not just of theater, but of every form of art and every entertainment, to really stand out? What do you think like a new actor or a new theater company or something like that has to bring to really get noticed today?
What do you think it takes to be noticed in a really saturated market of today?
It is a saturated market, and there's a lot of good work getting done, but there's always room for everybody wants to discover something new all the time. I walk around, I love music, for instance, and I'm not like a particularly young guy, but I listen to all the new music out there because I'm very, very interested in the new music that's being written, much more than the stuff I've listened to over time. It's the same with theater. When you see a special actor, when you see a special group, you know it. So I would say don't cater to, try not to think about the saturated marketplace so much. Try not to think about, use the marketplace. Now you can advertise your company, hey, like my company on Facebook, etc. That's probably an advantage. There are so many advantages to those, to the information age. One of them is not, though, the work itself that comes out of it. Everybody's the best. You just have to do the work that you're proud of. Somebody's going to notice it. I guarantee you that.
Okay, one final question. We're running out of time.
What advice do you have for young collegiate actors at this point in our journey?
What advice do you have for the young collegiate actor at this time?
What advice would you like? Do you like what you're doing? Keep doing it.
Okay, we have run out of time. I'd like to have introduced to you Dean Jim Major. Got a few things to say.
I'm having so much fun today. It's a pleasure to be a part of this great institution, this great College of Fine Arts. Thanks so much, Terry and Jeff and Don, for being a part of this morning. Please come back this afternoon at 2 p.m. in the Brown Ballroom, where Terry and Jeff will be receiving the honorary doctorate degrees for their contributions to American theater as a part of the Illinois State University's Founders Day Convocation. Later tonight, their Steppenwolf colleague, Lori Metcalf, will be receiving ISU's Distinguished Alumnus Award. Lori is busy rehearsing in New York and cannot join us, but we are still going to celebrate Lori this evening. This year, as a part of the 40th anniversary celebration, we established a new College of Fine Arts Hall of Fame, recognizing top alumni in art, music, theater, and arts technology who've gone on to do great things. I'm proud to officially announce today that Jeff Perry and Terry Kinney have been added to that Hall of Fame upon the recommendation of the School of Theater faculty. You can find out more about their accomplishments and those of other great alums on the kiosk in the Center for the Performing Arts lobby. Again, thank you for coming and celebrating this great Founders Day. Thank you.
Thank you all
Thank you,
very
everybody.
much.
It was so much fun to talk to you.